Hey, this is Matt at the Quantum Leap podcast, and today I've got a special guest with me here. I have Christina Mavroudis. Christina, hi, welcome to the show.
Hi, Matt. Hi, everybody. Yep, thank you.
So Christina's been here since the birth of fandom, and she's got a ton of stories to share with us. I'm really interested to hear more. We were starting to chat just before I started recording, and I had to say stop because there's clearly so much to share. So I'm not gonna spoil any of this. So we've been talking on Messenger a little bit recently, so I know a few of the topics we might cover. But yeah, Christina, maybe I can start by just throwing to you and saying you were starting to tell me just before we started recording about your early fandoms. I want to hear about how you got into Quantum Leap, but
Right.
Where did that all start from?
Right. So it sort of. So I mean, if we go all the way back, I mean, literally, I was a child. I was practically an infant, and my mom liked science fiction and watched the original Star Trek, and I used to come out as a toddler, probably not even vocal yet, but would come out and sneak behind the sofa to watch this green man with pointed ears. So I would watch the original Star Trek way back when, and I'm really dating myself. But yeah, so Star Trek. So really, kind of that was in my life, and I was very intrigued with that. Read all the Hobbits and the whole thing. But my real fandom began with Doctor Who. So back in the day, it was on PBS, I think, out here in the United States. And Tom Baker was my first Doctor. And
Tom Baker, yeah.
Tom Baker was my first. And watched that. It was intrigued. I couldn't understand the concept and TARDIS and everything. But the idea of time travel, I think that's where it started. So, yeah, definitely Doctor Who. I got involved with, somehow I was watching it on our local PBS, and they said, oh, we have a fan club called the Legion of Rassilon. Now, this is in the Silicon Valley. I lived in California. I still do. And sure enough, KTEH, which was the local PBS station, was airing it, and they actually sponsored, meaning they gave them a facility to have these clubs. And I went and I met people, and we manned the phones to raise money and the whole thing. But Legion of Rassilon was also my introduction to conventions because I met the right people. Next thing I know, I'm doing publications for a convention called TimeCon. And that first year, I'm typing and interviewing and doing these little publications and stuff. And we had Tom Baker and everybody from Doctor Who showed up at this convention. Colin Baker, a lot of the Star Trek people. So that was kind of my first introduction to celebrities and fans and whole convention thing worked, and that was amazing. Next thing I know, Star Trek: The Next Generation is being announced, and I'm like, okay, another edge of your seat. I'm gonna watch this. Very first episode, I watch it, and I'm intrigued by this gold man, this robot, Data. And I thought, oh my goodness, I need to know more about this character and maybe the actor a little bit and stuff. And I, within a week, and this is blows my mind when I think about it. Within a week, I had created a newsletter called Data Entries, and it was the first Star Trek Next Generation newsletter that had come out, and I went to the very first Star Trek Next Generation convention had Jonathan Frakes and had, I think there was a few more, and I don't recall, but we were in the audience, and I had my newsletter, and we had a little table, and I think it was a creation con, and off to the side, and we sold out. I think there must have been about 50 copies. I mean, it wasn't a whole lot, but we completely sold out. And there, and this is really interesting, Majel Barrett Roddenberry. So Gene Roddenberry, who created Star Trek, his wife, Majel, was there. She saw my newsletter. I think we gave her a free copy. She was there, and I was like, here,
As you would, yeah.
Yes. And next thing I knew, I got a phone call from her. And I'm, shaking a little bit. I'm in my 20s. I'm still very young and naive, and I've never had any association with Hollywood or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And she says, what are you doing these days? And I was like, oh, I work for Mitsubishi or something. I don't know. I had a whole bunch of these little jobs. She says, I need a secretary. I was wondering if you might want, are you local? I can move. I can move to Southern California,
Right.
heartbeat. And next thing I know, I'm working as her secretary in Hollywood, California. And the first day, one of the first days that I was working with her, and this is December 80, I don't know, whatever the first year was, 87 maybe? I think Star Trek Next Generation came out in 87.
Yeah,
and this was December.
87, yeah.
This was December, and it literally was my birthday. And she said, I have a little present for you. I need you to take these to the studio on the set and make sure these people get these things. I think they were the first prototype for the communicator. And I was like, oh, really? She gave me the pass. I got onto the Paramount Studios. I'm standing there. And it's really funny because the hair and makeup people took me under their wings, and they stuck me right by the camera, and they started giggling, and I didn't understand what was going on. And next thing you know, Patrick Stewart is literally 3 feet away from me, yelling at me. And he's just reciting his lines at the huge screen, that shows that they're talking to some alien and everything. And he's kind of screaming, and I'm sure my eyes blew up, and everybody was kind of laughing and everything because they knew the scene was coming. And me being all newbie and not around, not understanding any of this. But that was my first foray into this whole thing, and I ended up being able to interview a lot of the Star Trek people. And then she had me do edit a newsletter called Inside Star Trek, produced by Paramount.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of blows my mind when I think about how quickly this all kind of happened. So I'm doing Inside Star Trek. I'm also doing data entries. I'm invited to the cast party at the end of filming and stuff, and it was a blast. So I was living in Southern California. It got to the point where it was like, I think maybe too much. It was like, I wanted to be back home. I got homesick. So the next thing I know, it's 1989. It's October of 1989. And I go back to San Jose just in time for the earthquake. We had the the Bay.
Good timing.
Bay Area
Yeah.
had the earthquake on the 17th. I think it was the 17th of October. But also, and I think it was that right around then, I watched my first episode of Quantum Leap. And it was What Price Gloria. That was, I'm not original, so I feel bad, but I have to confess that What Price Gloria was my first episode.
I was wondering about that because, the show wasn't massively well promoted at the start, so I think a lot of us that have become known around fandom were not there from the beginning.
Right.
I was a lot younger, but I was watching the original run in the UK, but again, only starting from season 2. I missed the first season entirely as well.
Right.
So, it's funny how many people missed it and have since
it really was kind of
gone on to do other things.
Radar.
But,
and how lucky are we that it still got picked up? Thank God. But it was What Price Gloria, and here was this man dressed in heels, and I think what appealed to me first was his chutzpah, his is like total like I'm just going to wear heels and be a woman, and and it blew. First of all, the talent, Scott's talent is on the another level, right? And so I was intrigued by that. I didn't know who this Al guy was, and watching him, but it was interesting how nobody could see him and everything. And then I thought, oh, this is too good. I got to start watching this. Well,
what a great episode to start with. No wonder.
It really was. It really was. And then the next thing I knew, um, I had turned over data entries to a friend and just said, you know what, I too much going on right now, and I'm kind of interested in this new show, so maybe I need to look into this. I talked with my editor. I say editor, producer. He produced all of the data entries, and I came to him with this idea. I said, I really like this show. And he says, yes. And I was like, I really want to do a newsletter because I can't find anything out there. Now, apparently there was the very first newsletter was Imaging Chamber. And that had come out right around then too, I guess, or a couple of months before.
Yeah.
And yeah.
But Imaging Chamber was a lot of long form letters.
Yes.
I've got the early Imaging Chambers, and as a starting point, it's great. I can see what they were trying to do there, but I also know what you went on to do, and clearly something very different. So
I thought, well, there's a need here, right? People want to know all the little bits going on and stuff. So I put together kind of a copy, an outline of what I wanted. I want it to be 4 times a month. I can't do monthly. So I was doing data entries kind of bi-monthly or monthly, and it becomes overwhelming, especially back then. I mean, we barely had computers. The internet was in its infancy. AOL had not come out yet. So we were going through these different channels, these rec arts, kind of things. Oh my gosh, that was crazy. But I found the fandom, and we would chat, and people would give me information, and I would be like, I need to pull this together. So again, within a couple of weeks, I had put together the first Quantum Quarterly. Oh, we wanted to call it Quantum Quarterly because it was going to be quarterly. And I contacted Universal because, I've been able to do this before, right? I've done stuff like this before, just to say, hey, look, can I be on your distribution list for all these PR things that are going to come out? And they were like, sure, not a problem. We'll send you. So I was getting, so I gave him my fax number. Back in the day, faxes, and I would get these things. And then, but it was interesting. So, and he said, yeah, let's do this. And so I came out with the first one. We went to conventions. It was pretty much a hit. Here was the catalyst of what happened. I got contacted by the LA Times, who somehow the people at the front office at Quantum Leap at the front office, Harriet, who was Don Belisario's secretary, she knew about me, and she knew about the issue and the whole thing. She had forwarded my contact information to the LA Times columnist who did entertainment. She contacted me and did a little interview, and they wrote an article about the fandom and how we're like doing write-in campaigns, and we're very enthusiastic, and how we're reaching each other on the internet. And she printed my home address in the LA Times. She printed and next thing I know, I hear a knock at the door, and it's my mailman, and he says, I can't put this in your little slot. I said, what's the deal? And he shows up with this like hamper full of these letters. I mean, we're talking hundreds and hundreds of letters. He goes, this is the first one. I got 2 more outside. So
Wow.
what they had done is they had printed my home address. And this was like, if you want to subscribe, right? And I think we only charged like $1 an issue or something. And that was with mailing and the whole thing. God bless Jim Rondeau. Jim Rondeau was my publisher. He used to hand label, over 1,000 of these issues every quarter, and produce it. All I had to do was like pull the info and stuff. But next thing I know, I mean, it's this kind of, I'm getting letters from Japan and Australia and Africa, and I mean, people are really excited about this, a way to keep, what's going on with Quantum Leap and what can we do to be part of it. And so that was...
At what point in the life of Quantum Quarterly was this? Because I've recently been reading through all of them.
Oh my gosh.
And I noticed like the first few issues are kind of small newsletters, and they're very professionally done, but they're very quaint. And then suddenly there is this uptick of you can see the effort and the love that's going into it.
Yeah.
Was it maybe around about that sort of time that everyone's piling in on it?
Right. Yes, because we were getting so much information and people were engaging, and we were printing up letters. I think we call Leapin' Letters or something like that, and people would write in. And I mean, the first issue we did fake letters, like something from Steven Spielberg and something from Wesley Crusher and something. I mean, it was silly, but we said, "Hey, write it in." Well, oh my goodness, they took us literally, and they wrote in. So we're talking, the first issue was the spring of 1990. I think that was the first issue, was 1990. February, March, around there, maybe. And also, immediately, we were kind of in the letter writing campaign, because what happened is, right about then, they moved Quantum Leap to Friday nights. And the front office, when I talked to them, were freaking out because they were losing their ratings and losing their people to find them and everything. So here we go. We're gonna do like the Star Trek people, right? B. Joe Trimble started a Star Trek writing campaign, got that 3rd season, which basically saved the whole franchise, because from you need 3 seasons to go into syndication. And that was the key. We needed that 3rd season. So we started writing like crazy. And I don't know if you've seen it, but there's a small little commercial that NBC did.
Yeah.
The fake Brandon Tartikoff, where the letters, and the cool thing is those are the actual letters that went.
Oh, really?
Those are actually the letters.
Oh, wow.
And I mean, they got a fake act. I mean, I say a fake actor, a real actor to play a fake Brandon Tartikoff, and he was pretty funny. But we convinced them, save the show, and literally the fan write-in is what saved Quantum Leap. It really was. And then NBC did something which was amazing. They had Leap Week. So I don't know if you remember or whatever, but they had Leap Week I think it was during the summer, and that also engaged more people. People were able to catch up. They saw, because they were able to watch it every single day, Monday through Friday, for this week, and able to get the concept and what's going on and stuff. So,
binge watching in the pre-streaming era.
Exactly. You had no other way. It was like be there or set your VCR, which was you had to be a rocket scientist sometimes just to figure out put the timer on your VCR. But no, so that was brilliant. And then I got a call from Harriet, and she said, "Have you ever thought of coming down? We would love to have you on the set to meet everybody and get interviews and do whatever you need to make this newsletter happen." It shocked me, because with Star Trek, I never really got called into the front office, or given like the red carpet treatment and stuff. From the get-go, Quantum Leap people were, oh my gosh, they were angels. They were just amazing. Harriet and Dawn and Scott and, oh my gosh, Dean Stockwell. So one of the times I think I got to go, and they were open to this, of having fans on the set. It really was kind of a novelty, I think, at the time. That I say I don't think they know better or knew better at the time, but I mean, they probably did. They've been involved. I mean, they've been involved forever, and Battlestar Galactica and all these things. So I'm sure they were familiar. But the cast and Dean and Scott were so kind and so giving and really believed in the show so much. They wanted the fans to see how this beautiful setup with the cast and the crew and the whole thing. And so I came down. At the time, I was a single mom, and so I had my little daughter, who was like 7 or 8 or something. And this is, I'm telling you, bad mom. The very first episode that I took her on the set with me to see was the episode where they were in the brothel. So, yay me, bringing my 7-year-old, and the ladies are all kind of wearing skimpy whatevers.
It's an education.
Exactly. And she was quite shy too. But the cool thing was Dean totally took her under his wing. He offered her a little candy bar. He was like sitting next to her and talking to her. And it was just like, oh my gosh. And I had no camera with me, or I'd be like that. Mm-hmm. But they were, again, just giving, constantly making sure she was okay. And they would say, I think Dean said something like, there's a child on the set, watch your language, everybody, that kind of a thing. And they really were just gentlemen. So, yeah, I had that experience. But I think, and I'm just going to push forward with this, but later, and I'm trying to remember which season, I want to say it was the 3rd season. So I get a call from Harriet, and she says, we want to say thank you to the fans. And I went, just having the show is kind of thank you enough. Mm-hmm. No, Don really wants to do this. And I went, okay, what can I do? And what are we doing? He said, Don wants to air an episode before it is actually aired, nationally. He wants to invite anybody who can come to Universal Studios, and they have this little theater, and I forget the name of the theater. But he says, I want them to come and just enjoy it. And it'll be like a little mini convention, and we'll everybody will have a seat, and Scott and Dawn and Dean will be there. They'll take questions and stuff, and then we're going to air, and then we'll take some more questions, and they'll sign autographs and whatever. That is huge. So what I had to do was, because we have no real internet connections too much. I mean, we have this little thing. But I wrote this thing out, and I said, hey guys, Universal wants to thank us. It's this date at this time. If you can be there, you need to RSVP. Let me know, because I think we could only fit maybe 200 people. Right? That was going to be like the max. It was 200, and I had to forward the information to Harriet. Oh, we got this person, right? Next thing I know, here comes the day. We've totally sold out. People have flown in from all over the United States. I don't know if we got anybody internationally, but, and God bless them. They gave me a seat right next to Deborah Pratt, who wrote the episode, and it was 8.5 months.
8.5 months, yeah.
8.5 months. And I cried through the whole thing, and it was kind of close to home. I was, single mom and the whole thing. But I'm watching this, and then I took a side glance, and Deborah was watching me to get my. I mean,
watching it.
Yes, because they want the fan reaction. This was the whole thing, was getting fan reaction. Well, talk about hitting it on a very personal level and everything. And there was such an energy and a love going through between the cast and crew and the fans, and it was so beautiful. And I think that was one of the reasons they were so open to having a bigger an event. So one of the things that we started to do is I got this phone call from this nice lady, and I can't remember her name. Noreen, maybe. I'm gonna get it wrong. Anyway, beautiful lady. She calls up and she goes, "Dean does not have a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, he's been acting since he was a baby, an infant, and he's gone through. I mean, his whole life has been on the screen." And she said, "He's really into ecology and recycling." Now, again, this is in the 90s. It was just, I mean, we had, some recycling or whatever, but people weren't too much into it like they are. I mean, pretty much now it goes without, without saying that we have that. But back then, not so much. And we wanted to bring it to light. And so we came up with this idea of raising money for a star in the Hollywood Walk of Fame for Dean Stockwell through recycling. And that the top person would be noted and, get to be there and everything. And we were going to have this luncheon and everything. So anyway, we raised the money. I was in connection with Dean's agent, and he couldn't believe what we were doing, that we were raising this money and through recycling. And he's like, I got to tell you, Dean really he was uncomfortable with this because he felt like his friend,
Dennis Hopper, yeah?
Hopper, yes. He said he doesn't have a star. And he goes, "I want Dennis to have a star and everything." He says, "But because of the way we were doing it, he is open to this. He is totally excited because we were building this momentum and stuff." Next thing we know, it's going to be a leap weekend. He is going to get his star. We turned in the forms. He got accepted. It's this whole process that I had to go through with forms and setting up a bank account and the whole thing. But everything was set, and I told the Chamber of Commerce, the Hollywood Chamber of Commerce, it needs to be on Leap Day. So February 29th, Leap Day, 1992, Dean Stockwell got his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, and people came from all over the place. Again, Australia and England and just everywhere. And so that was Friday. Saturday, and we had a luncheon right after the star ceremony. We had this beautiful luncheon at the Roosevelt Hotel, and it was completely sold out. And people were wonderful, and people made fan videos, which we aired. And Dean could only stay a little bit, which was unfortunate, but he was there. He said thank you to the fans and the whole thing. And we had this little luncheon. And then the next day was the very first Quantum Leap convention. And oh my gosh. I mean, I think somebody actually, was it Al's place or someplace, you can actually see the whole convention, all the interviews, the actors, the fashion show, the whole thing. And I was asked, along with some other ladies who do publications, we actually did a panel too, which was kind of exciting. And but I can't even tell you, it was the best convention because everybody involved with the show was involved in the convention. So you had all the actors were there and the creative team. we had John Pierre Dorliac, who was the costumer. That fashion show was all him. He picked all the fashions. He picked the actors who modeled. Everything. The set designers did the set for the convention. They did it to make it look like the imaging chamber, and so that they entered and there was flash, and I mean, it was they wanted it to be professional and beautiful for the fans, a really great experience. I mean, I've never seen that in any other convention. The details.
I've been to a couple of official conventions, and you can still tell, not Quantum Leap, but you can still tell that the production team have obviously farmed it out to an events team who have done their best, but really it's pretty much the same as a fan-made one, just with a higher budget.
Right.
But I've seen the photos and I've seen the videos of that Quantum Con, and yeah, you can tell it's part of the production. It's like almost a spin-off of the show. It's amazing.
It was. And the love. I mean, serious. It was such. I mean, even now we're talking. What are we talking? 30 plus years later, I still remember.
Yeah.
More 40? I don't know. Long time.
31 years.
Yeah, and. But the actors and the production team, I mean, Chris Rubenthal and Tommy Thompson, and just Bernie Cameron and all these people. I mean, just their devotion to the show. Michael Watkins, holy cow, extraordinary talent and stuff, and he won an Emmy. And that's another story. I mean, should I just keep going? Because that was so.
Please do. You're sharing so much without me even needing to ask questions. So just go right ahead.
Well, there's so much. There's so much. So Quantum Leap, in its first real season, I think they got like 8 Emmy nominations. So, I mean, Best Dramatic Series, Scott Bakula for Best Actor, Dean Stockwell, Best Supporting Actor, Cinematography, Art Design, Bernie Cameron. Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of great stuff. Music might have also been nominated. And this is really interesting. So, because of my involvement with Star Trek, I was able to get. I went on a date, sort of like, or I was invited by a guy I knew with Star Trek who worked as a PA, and it was so sweet. Well, it was also the lead people were there, and this was the technical Emmys, and so I'm sitting at the Star Trek table, but I'm commiserating really with the Quantum Leap people, because I'm more friends with the Quantum Leap people at this point. And next thing we know, Michael Watkins had won, and he goes up there and get the whole thing, and wow, it was so exciting. Somewhere I've got a picture of Michael with he's clutching it, right? Well, the next day, and this is really funny. So the next day, my friend Sally and I were invited to a softball game. So in the industry, and I don't know if this was just Universal television shows or like all the TV shows, but they had like a softball league type of thing. And Quantum Leap was going to compete against China Beach. So China Beach was another dramatic series and stuff, and they were going to do their softball game. And I thought, oh, okay, so we'll be in the stands and we'll cheer on our little team and the whole thing. The thing was, they had to have, you had to have at least 2 women on the team to make it equal or fair or something like that. They didn't have enough people. And so they're like, anybody And I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know how to play baseball or softball. I mean, I sort of do, but not really. I throw like a girl, yeah, I don't know how to throw. But they were going to have to forfeit. So I raise up my hand, my long-nailed red. I had just had them done for the Emmys. My long nails, right? And I'm like, oh, okay, I'll help out, you guys. And they're like, yay. And they go, can you be the catcher? And I'm like, sure. I don't know about squatting, but, sure, okay. So I'm there and I think I ended up rolling the ball to the pitcher. And I can't even tell you if we won or not. It was so embarrassing the way I was like trying to help, but at least they got to play.
I feel like you did. I'm sure you won. Hang on.
Oh yeah.
I've got this somewhere.
Oh, do you? Oh my gosh, I don't even remember. I just don't. But oh, you mean like an old issue of Quantum Quarterly? Did I mention something like that, or
you reported on it, and you definitely said whether you won or not. So
okay.
I'll find it.
Okay. Oh my gosh, yeah, it was what a blast. But here's the really another interesting thing on top of that. So at the end of the game, so Michael Watkins shows up, right, with his Emmy. And the entire team comes gathering around Michael Watkins. They all want a part of, they worked as a team. So here they are with their Emmy. And I don't know if it was to like, hey, China Beach, look what we got kind of a thing. But I somewhere out there's pictures of them all trying to hold this beautiful lady, the Emmy Award. And so I took a few pictures, and then we're breaking up, and everybody's going to their car and stuff like that. And so my friend Sally and I are going to our car, and we're just kind of chatting about the game and everything. And we look over, and there is Scott Bakula cleaning up the venue. He is picking up trash. He's putting it in his car. And we're like, what is going on? This is not what a famous, Hollywood TV star does. He just pick up trash. The man walked the walk. You know what I mean? He didn't just talk about it and recycling and being good to the environment. He took, Dean Stockwell's mission to clean the earth, to make it beautiful, to heart. And here was this guy, and what a great role model, picking up the trash. And God bless him. I mean,
it feels like
it endeared me.
Everyone that was involved in the original series in any respect has a beautiful Scott Bakula story. It just...
Yes.
I've never interacted with the guy, but it's, what an amazing man.
When he taught, so I've been very fortunate in meeting quite a number of stars and people in the industry. Scott is the only one, literally the only one that I have met where when you talk to him, he is 100% there for you. He's not looking over your shoulder to see who else is kind of coming around or watching or whatever, because a lot of people will do that. They're like, is everybody watching? I'm talking with fans, or oh, so-and-so's here. Let's hurry this up because I need to go talk to this guy or whatever.
Yeah.
You are his 100% person that he's talking to. He's invested. He wants to be there to talk to you. And you're like, how did I deserve this? A rare gem, a real rare gem out in the industry, because trust me, I've met them all. Met them all. But, yeah. No, he's a good guy, really good guy. So we did the quantum convention. We did the Emmy Awards. We did the Star. The Star was how beautiful was that he got that. And um, Dennis Hopper was there. Roddy McDowall, his buddy, Roddy McDowall was there. The Star. His brother, Guy. I think it's Guy. That's right. Guy Stockwell was there.
Yeah.
And Scott was there, obviously, and it was a beautiful morning that we did this. I know the Entertainment Tonight. I mean, a lot of they were there, and what a great opportunity. The second convention. This was kind of interesting. The second convention that happened was even bigger, but not on the more detailed level and everything. But what was interesting was that USA, the TV channel USA, was there interviewing the fans and the actors and stuff like that, because it was going to be syndicated, I think is what was happening, was going to be syndicated on USA. And so it was kind of exciting. They asked me, what's your favorite Quantum Leap episode? And I'm like, Catch a Falling Star, when he leaps into an actor and is ready to go on. Yeah, one of my favorite. But, obviously 8.5 Months, also a favorite. And oh my gosh, Imaging Chamber, the last Mirror Image, the last one. But at that point, I don't think we had it. And no, we would have had it.
Well, I was going to ask about that. The atmosphere at that convention, because that was, if I remember rightly, that was February '93. So by that point, Mirror Image had been scripted. It was filmed, I think, a few weeks after the convention. But fandom must have been sort of... I know there's a few quotes from Dean Stockwell, particularly around about the time of that con, saying season 6 doesn't look likely. So could you sense that at the con, that there was a bit of a, this might be the last hurrah?
It was, so, yeah. So what happened... because what happened was I was able to go, I think it was that same weekend, or the week before, they had just finished filming, and it was a wrap party. And so it was like a Friday or something like that. They went to this bar, and I looked at Scott, and who was just kind of sitting there, just, nursing a drink kind of a thing. He looked exhausted. He looked like done.
Yeah.
When you have to carry a show like that, and you're in almost every single scene, it's a lot on your shoulders, but I kind of looked at everybody, and it almost looked like it was kind of like a farewell. I think that party, that cast party, was a little bit of a goodbye, and you could see a little bit of relief, almost. I mean, because of the stress of knowing, that, is this going to happen again? Do we get a reprieve? But I think they closed it up beautifully. I think, well, except for that last thing. So when that aired, so I had brought a couple of my friends, my friend Sally and everything, and I think we all gathered around the television, right? We wanted to see it as it aired, and we're just kind of sitting there and watching, and it's very sentimental, and we're getting kind of teary, and God bless you, Sam, and he leaps, and you're like, oh. And then the whole thing with him going to see Beth, and it was just, the tears were flowing. We knew, and we're like, okay, this is like the final moments and stuff like that. And then that placard came up, and we're like, I think we all screamed as a nation at the screen. No, that poor man,
Yeah.
just forever. So I've been part of a couple of fandoms where fans wanted more. I mean, I think it was beautiful closure. I think it explained a lot. It tied up everything. And then, but that, I don't know what that did to us. I think it just kind of made us kind of mad, like we need to bring it back kind of a thing. It took a while, but here we are.
Well, it gave us 30 years of debating. I mean, we're still talking about it today.
Oh my goodness, yes.
That and The Prisoner. I mean, it's...
Oh my, right? There's another one. So to give you kind of a perspective on what was going on, innovation. So now getting into the comic aspect of this. So, I'm trying to remember the whole situation, but I met with George Broderick with Innovation, and he was the editor of the Quantum Leap comics at a convention. And for the life of me, I can't remember which convention. It might have been the first one. In fact, I'm almost positive it was the first one.
I think it was the first one.
Yeah, because...
That he was at, yeah.
Because I met up with him. Now that I'm thinking about it, I met up with him at... They had a table, Innovation, the whole thing, and he was trying to promote it and get people to, I don't know, subscribe or whatever, or know about it. And I started talking with him, and I said... I've got a lot of stories. I mean, at that point, I was looking into getting my own agent because Quantum Leap closed. Like initially, it was like they'll take any script kind of thing, and I missed that window. And then now you had to have an agent, so I was trying to get an agent. But I went to him and I said, if I can't get it to these guys, is there some way I can like make it into a comic? And he says, we need to talk. He said, yeah, definitely am interested. But he said, I like your writing, and I was wondering if you could write a report on this weekend. There's a lot happening. The Star on Friday, the luncheon, the convention itself. Sure, not a problem. So I said, look, I'm rather prolific. You need to give me a word count because I will just keep writing and writing and writing and writing. And he said, just write, I'll edit, just keep going. I think it was like 10 pages, easily 10 pages. And then he filled it in with photos and stuff like that. But this was like a special reissue, I think, of comic number 1.
Yeah.
And he stuck my report in there somewhere. And that was kind of my foray into the comic book field. So while I had a whole bunch of short stories, and I'm kind of loath to say this, but I have about 73 Quantum Leap stories. It's so easy to come up with a great premise for it because it's basically everything,
Anything, yeah.
Anything works. So I had that, but I had written three actual scripts, episodic, with the commercial breaks and the whole thing. And, but had never been able to get it. And I understood. I mean, they had their own writing staff, the whole thing. So, but I thought, I really want to do this. So I started talking with, we were emailing each other, George and I. And he goes, I have this idea. He said, you mentioned that Scott wanted to leap into a baby, but they couldn't figure out how to make this work. I said, yes. And I said, I wrote a short story about it. He goes, send me the short story. So I did. He loved it. He said, can you make this into a regular script? Which I did. He goes, now we got to turn this into a comic script. So I have 3 versions of the same thing. I have the short story, the television, and the comic script. Because comic scripts are written differently. I had to learn like a whole new formatting and stuff like that, and pow, boom, whatever, that you have to like write special effects and that kind of a thing. So, and so God bless him, he worked with me. Like I would send him the first draft, and he goes, "This doesn't work. There's too much talking. We need more action. Can you do more action?" So take it back, do more edit, give it back to him. And so this was, I was so excited. This was like, yes, I'm finally gonna, this is finally gonna happen. And it didn't. He calls me up and he's like, "I am so sorry. Company went under. We can't do this." We were all set. The illustrator, the book was complete. They had finished the comic. He says, "I will send you a copy of the cover and one of the
wow.
First. So yeah, so I
didn't know it got that far.
Yeah. And so God bless him, but I just, so, and then the opening page has him leaping, and he's standing there in his little red these little red shorts with the straps, and he's holding his mommy's hand, and they're at a zoo, and he's got a binky in his mouth, like a little kid would have a binky, and he's holding cotton candy, and a giraffe is about ready to eat his cotton candy. So that was the opening, and I was so excited. Beautiful artwork, great people that I worked with at Innovation, and never happened. But and I asked him, I said, can I publish this? Can I put it out there? He goes, "Oh yeah." So it's actually out there somewhere if you look for it. It was called Two Dweebs and a Little Monster. It was based on because he initially gave me this. He goes, "This sounds." So I told him what my story was about. It was like this child abduction thing, and they would sell the kids and all this stuff, but they were kind of bumbling. And he says, "That sounds very much like Ransom for Red Chief," which was a short story from way back. And so I had no idea, so I had to go out and find the short story, and I'm like, "Oh yeah, okay," sort of like that, where the kid is a little bit more than the kidnappers can handle, kind of a thing. And Scott would be obnoxious about it, and Sam would be obnoxious about it. Anyway, so that was good, but it also had a lot. I think there was overtones of Saving Arizona, which was a movie about a couple that abducts kids or something like that. So so that was kind of exciting and sad at the same time, and I wrote a couple of other stories and another script, which is also, you can find it online. It's called "And a Child Shall Lead Them," and it's I love it. It's my alternative to Mirror Image, where Sam finally comes home. So yay! And that's. Are you familiar with AO3?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, is it there?
Yeah, it's in there. So yeah, you could just for Quantum Leap, and it's in script form, because I was just like, dang it, I'm going to make sure it gets out there. So push it out there. So enough. It is there. Yeah. So the comic thing. So when was this? Again, I think it was the last season. And I got contacted by Arsenio Hall. So Arsenio Hall had a late night television thing, and he was going to have Scott on, and they said they wanted to talk about the fandom and fans and everything, and they said, "Could you send us a couple of your issues," and that kind of a thing. So sure enough, I sent it. Scott comes on. Arsenio's talking to him, and he goes, "Your fandom is crazy," and he pulls out Quantum Quarterly. He's got like a stack of of fan
Mm-hmm.
scenes and stuff. He pulls out a Quantum Quarterly, and then he pulls out the comic too. So that was kind of cool. I think it was like some guy. I think the episode was him leaping into somebody who was on death row and in the electric chair. So this was kind of like
Yeah.
in that particular one. But it was kind of nice to see a little. I mean, they wrote Arsenio, "Don't show this on the air," and he was like, "Eh," and he actually showed my Quantum Quarterly. I'm like, "Yay!" So that was kind of exciting too to see that and the comic. But yeah, it was kind of a nice little roller coaster for those 3-4 years of being part of this excitement and how much that they embrace the fandom.
Wow. I think, I had so much stuff I wanted to ask you, all written down in note form, and you just kept answering them before I had the chance to ask. So, no, this is great. I think maybe just to... no, it was good. It was the easiest interview I've ever done. Maybe just to kind of tie a bow on this. Honestly, this has been so enlightening, entertaining. I'd just love to know, maybe if you could wrap up by talking about kind of what your interaction with fandom's been like since the show has finished, and kind of any friendships that you've taken with you, because otherwise we finish in 93 and the show's over. It's all a bit downhearted, but clearly this has remained with you. So what can you tell us about the last 30 years, as you know?
Oh my goodness.
In that sense.
Okay. So Quantum Quarterly went on until 1998, which is a lot longer than the series, obviously. It went through 3 publishers, or editors. So I started, and then I passed it on to my friends Elizabeth Ford and Kathy Dunn. And then Jim Rondeau took on the last half of them. So that was like 8 years. He did about 4 years of the publication. God bless him, because what was happening is Don kept trying to get a movie done, and that just and I think keeping the show going, whether on the Sci-Fi Channel. Oh, and that was another thing. Sci-Fi Channel contacted me because they wanted they were doing a documentary about the history of Quantum Leap, and this was 90. So I was working for Sony PlayStation at the time. That's a whole other story. But I was contacted by them, and so this must have been in 96, maybe? I'm thinking around 96. Well, it had been a couple of years, so I'm like, oh, geez, okay, I got to go back and remember. But that was really exciting because so that they were capturing this history, yay. And that was really exciting. And I think we talked about the idea of the Watts riots. There was a whole show where he came in during the Watts riots, and it was a kind of a mixed relationship, and it was about prejudice and racism and everything. What a great opportunity to open up that conversation with my daughter at the time too. Like, this is what's going on, and this was still an issue. All these years later, still an issue. But anyway, so that was another opportunity to revisit the show in like 96. And then my friend Kathy, this is really interesting. So I met Kathy. She and Elizabeth had started another little publication. It was kind of like a string theory. They were trying to find out all the people that had worked with all the actors, with Scott and Dean and everything. And they did this little publication. They took over Quantum Quarterly and stuff. I met them for the first time at that Universal Studio event. They flew out from New Jersey to be part of the event, and that's how we met each other for the first time. Well, all these years later, and we're like still best friends. I mean, we're talk to each other every day on the phone, talk about Quantum Leap and hey, have you been watching the new episodes? And then speculation. That's the big thing is like we speculate about what's coming out. And is he going to come back? And and then, so keeping that friendship alive, I mean, it's genuine, and because it came from a place of mutual respect for this show and mutual enjoyment and admiration for the talent and everything. So I value those relationships, and I've reconnected with Elizabeth and Elizabeth Ford, and yeah, and then interestingly enough, Scott Bakula on the Actors Equity is right next to a good friend of mine named Mark Bacalor. So Scott Bakula is next to Mark Bacalor.
Mm-hmm.
He went to school with my daughter, so he's quite young and everything. But he's obviously familiar with Scott because he did this. He's now working with Mason Park,
mm-hmm.
The actor who plays Ian, and so he's helping like with his concerts and stuff like that. So it's interesting how all these little connections just kind of
mm-hmm.
come up still decades later, and
you can't escape it.
But who wants to?
Yeah,
because it's such a brilliant concept, and I don't know, the shows are beautiful, and the characters are quite beautiful. The interactions, and I'm seeing that more. I didn't see that in the original as much because we were just getting used to the characters and everything. But chemistry is starting to happen. We're starting to get, with Magic,
mm-hmm.
and Jen, and Janice, and the whole, even Janice, So I'm excited to see what the future holds for this, and what new people like you that I get to meet now, through this.
Quite right. The show does seem to be going from strength to strength now, as it's the new series is discovering what its actors are capable of. There's a second season to look forward to now, and I'm enjoying meeting new people in fandom as well. It's fantastic. Look, Christina, we've been speaking for an hour now. I feel like we should probably try and wrap this up. But I just want to say thank you, because I reached out to you because I was hoping to chat to you for a few minutes about Two Dweebs and a Monster.
Yeah.
And what I've got is a fan perspective of 4 out of the 5 years the show was originally on, which is just it's amazing and such a unique journey that you went on. So thank you for sharing that with me. Thank you for sharing that with the podcast. I appreciate it.
Thank you. My pleasure. This was very enjoyable.